Communication is the foundation of leadership. It's not just what you say, but how you make others feel when you say it. Every great leader, in every generation, has mastered one thing above all: the ability to speak with clarity, confidence, and emotional power. Words shape perception. Tone builds trust, and presence creates influence. In this audiobook, you'll discover 10 powerful ways to transform the way you speak, listen, and connect. These are not tricks, they are timeless principles that turn ordinary people into extraordinary communicators. When you master them, you won't just sound confident, you'll become someone others naturally want to follow. So take a deep breath, because what you're about to learn can change the way you express yourself, in meetings, conversations, and every moment that requires presence. Let's begin! And before we start, remember to subscribe so you never miss a single journey toward mastering your voice, your influence, and your leadership. Chapter 1. Speak with purpose. Every great communicator begins with one thing: clarity of purpose. Without purpose, your words lose power. They wander. They confuse. They fade. Speaking with purpose doesn't mean sounding perfect. It means knowing why you're speaking before you open your mouth. When you understand your intention, your language becomes precise, your tone becomes calm, and your message lands exactly where it should. People don't remember every word you say. They remember the feeling your words create. That feeling is born from clarity. It's born from a sense that you mean what you say, and you say it because it matters. Leadership begins with vision, and communication gives that vision a voice. A person who speaks with purpose doesn't need to shout. Their conviction carries them. Purposeful communication turns ordinary speech into direction. It gives meaning to meetings, depth to discussions, and power to persuasion. When you know your purpose, every sentence becomes intentional. You stop talking to fill silence. You start talking to fill understanding. At work, people often speak without thinking. They react. They fill the air with words, hoping meaning will find its way out. But leaders speak to move something forward. They speak to align, to inspire, to awaken, to connect. When your message serves a higher goal, growth, unity, truth, your communication becomes magnetic. People can feel it. They trust your energy before they trust your words. So before every conversation, pause for 3 seconds and ask yourself silently, what's the purpose here? Do I want to inform, inspire, or influence? Once that's clear, your entire presence changes. Purpose organizes your thoughts. It shapes your sentences. It turns noise into narrative. And narrative, that's what connects people. When you speak with purpose, you stop trying to sound smart. You start sounding sincere. You stop trying to control outcomes. You start creating clarity. Your tone becomes slower, warmer, more grounded. You choose words that build bridges instead of walls. You start caring more about impact than impression. And that's where real leadership begins, when your voice becomes an instrument of purpose, not ego. Because leadership communication isn't about showing how much you know. It's about helping others know what matters. Speaking with purpose gives your message direction, but it also gives your mind peace. You no longer feel the urge to fill every silence or dominate every space. You learn to pause, to breathe, to trust that silence can speak too. That calmness, that stillness, is what separates true communicators from talkers. When you speak with purpose, you respect the listener. You respect the moment. You respect your own words enough to give them space to live. And the beauty of purpose-driven communication is this: you never have to force people to listen. They'll want to, because when you speak with clarity and intention, people can feel your authenticity. Purpose creates alignment between your voice, your values, and your vision. It's the invisible thread that holds your communication together. Without it, your words scatter. With it, they soar. So the next time you speak, whether it's in a meeting, an interview, or a difficult conversation, don't focus on sounding confident. Focus on being clear, because clarity is confidence. When your words carry purpose, your presence carries power. And that's how you begin to speak, not just as a professional, but as a leader. Chapter 2. Listen like a leader. Listening is the quietest form of power. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't demand attention, but it changes everything it touches. In leadership, the ability to listen well is the true mark of wisdom, because real communication doesn't begin when you speak. It begins when you listen. Most people hear. Very few listen. Hearing is physical. It's the sound entering your ears. Listening is emotional. It's the meaning entering your heart. A true leader knows the difference. They understand that listening is not about waiting for your turn to speak. It's about giving the other person space to be seen, understood, and respected. When you listen like a leader, people open up. They drop their guard. They stop performing. They start revealing what really matters. And that moment, when someone feels safe enough to be honest, that's where leadership truly begins. Listening is not weakness. It's control. It's composure. It's choosing to understand before deciding to act. In a world obsessed with talking, listening has become rare, and that's exactly why it's powerful. Leaders who listen always know more. Because while others are busy responding, they are observing. They hear the tone behind the words. They catch the silence between the sentences. They notice what's not being said, and that's often where the truth hides. To listen like a leader, you must first quiet your mind, because your mind is loud. It's busy rehearsing what to say next. It's defending, analyzing, judging. But real listening requires surrender. It means giving full attention without agenda. When someone speaks, let your mind become still. Make eye contact. Slow your breathing. Let your energy say, "I'm here." That's presence. And presence is leadership. When you listen fully, your silence speaks louder than your words ever could. It tells people you matter. And that simple message changes relationships, meetings, and entire team dynamics. Listening doesn't just gather information. It builds connection. It creates trust. The currency of every strong organization. People don't trust those who talk the most. They trust those who make them feel heard. Because being heard is being valued. And being valued is being seen. A leader who listens gives others permission to speak honestly. That honesty fuels creativity. It solves problems before they grow. It makes people loyal beyond titles or salaries. Because when a person feels understood, they give their best. Listening is not just for peace. It's for progress. You can't lead effectively if you don't understand your people. And you can't understand them if you don't listen. Sometimes the answers you're searching for are already in the room, spoken quietly by someone you've overlooked. Listening helps you find them. Leaders who listen create clarity. Because when people feel heard, confusion disappears. Misunderstandings fade. Cooperation rises. Listening isn't about agreement. It's about acknowledgement. You don't have to accept every opinion, but you do have to respect every voice. When people know they're respected, they'll respect your decisions, even when they disagree. That's the paradox of leadership. The more you listen, the more authority you gain. Because listening builds trust, and trust gives you influence. In communication, silence is not emptiness, it's intelligence. Pausing before you respond creates space for wisdom to arrive. It prevents impulsive reactions. It lets emotions settle so reason can speak. The strongest communicators in any room are often the ones who talk the least. They don't rush to fill silence. They wait for understanding. They value clarity more than control. To listen like a leader, you must also listen beyond words. Listen to body language. Listen to tone. Listen to patterns. Listen to what a person repeats. It reveals their priorities. Listen to what they avoid. It reveals their fears. When you listen deeply, every conversation becomes data for understanding people better. And understanding people is what makes you a great communicator. Leaders who master listening create a culture where ideas flow freely. People stop holding back. Meetings become meaningful instead of mechanical, and communication becomes collaboration. You don't have to agree with everything to listen effectively. You just have to stay open enough to learn something from it. Every person you meet knows something you don't, and every time you listen, you grow. Listening sharpens emotional intelligence. It teaches patience. It helps you manage ego, because ego doesn't like silence. Ego loves to talk. Leadership learns to listen. The moment you stop needing to prove your intelligence, your wisdom becomes visible. When leaders truly listen, they make fewer mistakes, because they see the full picture before acting. They detect small issues before they explode. They understand moods before they shift. That awareness is priceless. Listening also gives you the ability to speak better, because when you listen first, you learn what matters to others. You understand their language, their pain, their motivation. Then when you speak, your words land exactly where they're needed. That's how influence is built. Not by talking louder, but by listening deeper. Listening isn't passive. It's active discipline. It requires presence, humility, and empathy. It demands that you put your pride aside and put people first. When someone feels truly heard, they feel seen. When they feel seen, they feel safe. And when they feel safe, they bring their best ideas forward. That's the environment every leader should create. A space where listening leads to learning, and learning leads to growth. Listening transforms teams. It dissolves conflict. It replaces tension with trust. Because sometimes all a person needs to keep going is to feel that someone cares enough to listen. Listening is also an act of love. A quiet, invisible love that says, I value you more than my opinion right now. That's the kind of leadership that leaves a legacy. Listening well doesn't just improve your communication. It elevates your character. It deepens your relationships. It refines your energy. Because when you listen, you stop controlling. You start connecting. And that connection, that invisible bridge, is what holds teams together through every challenge. So, slow down. Look people in the eye. Let them finish. Let silence breathe. You don't lose control when you listen. You gain it. Because in the end, leaders who listen always speak with more impact. Their words carry the weight of understanding. Their tone carries respect. Their presence carries peace. That's what it means to listen like a leader. Not to wait for your turn, but to give someone else their moment. And when you do that, you don't just hear people, you heal them. Chapter 3. Master the power of tone and delivery. Words carry information. Tone carries emotion, and emotion is what people remember. You can say the right thing in the wrong tone and lose the message completely. You can also say something simple, but if your tone feels sincere, it can move hearts. That's the hidden power of communication. It's not what you say that defines you. It's how you say it. Tone is the emotional fingerprint of your voice. It tells the truth, even when your words don't. It reveals your mood, your confidence, your intent, and people feel it instantly. You don't need to raise your voice to sound powerful. You need to raise your presence. Because real authority doesn't live in volume, it lives in control. The greatest communicators don't speak louder than everyone else. They speak clearer. They speak calmer. They speak with rhythm, precision, and peace. Your tone is like music. It sets the atmosphere before your words even land. A warm tone relaxes. A sharp tone wounds. A calm tone reassures. A confident tone inspires. At work, your tone decides whether your message unites or divides. You can give feedback that uplifts or feedback that humiliates, and the difference lies in tone. When you master tone, you master energy. You control the emotional temperature of the room. A good communicator doesn't react to others' tone. They regulate their own, because tone is contagious. Anger spreads. Calm spreads faster. The person with the most control over their tone holds the most power, not over people, but over situations. Every tone sends a message. When you speak with urgency, people act. When you speak with peace, people trust. When you speak with empathy, people open up. When you speak with arrogance, people close down. Tone builds bridges or burns them. And once a bridge is burned, even the right words can't cross it again. Delivery is how you carry your message. It's your rhythm, your pause, your pace, your presence. It's the choreography of your communication. Words are static. Delivery gives them life. A pause before a point adds weight. A change in tempo keeps attention alive. A slight drop in volume draws people closer. That delivery is what turns talking into storytelling. When you deliver with intention, people don't just hear you, they feel you. That's what makes the difference between someone who speaks and someone who moves others. At its core, communication is emotional choreography. Every rise and fall of tone shapes how your listener feels. Every silence carries meaning. Every breath becomes part of the rhythm. The most powerful communicators understand silence as part of their delivery. They know when to stop, when to let the message sink in, when to breathe. Because silence is not absence, it's presence, the kind that allows words to echo deeper. The delivery of your message should mirror your emotion, but never overwhelm it. If you're passionate, let your voice rise with energy, but never lose control. If you're explaining something delicate, let your tone soften, your pace slow, your rhythm breathe. People don't follow perfection. They follow authenticity. And your tone is the language of authenticity. You can't fake warmth. You can't hide arrogance. Tone always tells the truth. So before speaking, check your emotional state. Ask yourself, what energy am I about to share with this room? Because the tone you carry is the emotion you transmit. If you're anxious, your words shake. If you're angry, your message hardens. If you're calm, your words flow like water. Delivery isn't about acting. It's about aligning your emotion with your message. When those two connect, people trust you. Confidence in delivery comes from stillness inside. When you're grounded, your tone stays steady. When you're centered, your delivery becomes effortless. Think of your voice as an instrument. Every meeting, every presentation, every conversation, you're playing a new melody. The goal is not to perform. It's to resonate. The right tone turns ideas into impact. The right delivery turns information into inspiration. You can speak truth all day long, but if your tone carries tension, no one will hear the truth. They'll only hear the tension. Soften your edges. Lower your pace. Breathe between thoughts. That's how your voice becomes leadership. When you speak to inspire, your tone must invite, not intimidate. Your energy must uplift, not overpower. Because leadership communication is not about control. It's about influence through trust. People remember how you made them feel far longer than they remember what you said. Your tone is that feeling. Your delivery is the experience that carries it. Mastering tone means mastering emotion, and emotion mastery begins with awareness. If you don't know how you feel, you can't control how you sound. So learn to recognize your emotional cues. Notice when frustration creeps into your voice. Notice when your pace speeds up in anxiety. Notice when silence feels uncomfortable. Awareness is the first step to refinement. Once you become aware of your tone, you can shape it. You can slow it down. You can warm it up. You can lift it higher. Every time you adjust your tone consciously, you train your leadership presence. In tense conversations, tone is everything. If you sound defensive, even truth feels like attack. If you sound compassionate, even correction feels like care. You can't control how people interpret your words, but you control the energy they carry. That's why tone is the soul of communication. When your tone matches your intention, people don't resist. They receive. The way you deliver feedback decides whether it builds trust or breaks it. The way you share an idea decides whether it inspires or annoys. The way you handle disagreement decides whether it heals or divides. And all of that comes down to tone and delivery. Leaders know that people listen differently when they feel respected, so they communicate in a way that preserves dignity. They make eye contact. They modulate their volume. They use pauses instead of pressure. Their tone says, "I value you," and that tone makes people listen. Delivery also includes body language. Your posture, gestures, and facial expressions all speak with your tone. If your face looks tense but your words sound friendly, your audience will believe your face. Your body never lies. So let your delivery be congruent, aligned between words, tone, and presence. Before big conversations, ground yourself. Take a breath. Slow your heart rate. Feel your feet on the floor. Let calm rise from within. Then speak from that stillness. That's how your tone becomes magnetic. That's how your delivery becomes effortless. Leaders don't rush their words. They respect them. They know every phrase has the power to inspire or destroy. They use tone like a craftsman uses tools. Carefully, intentionally, with mastery. Your tone can turn disagreement into dialogue. It can turn resistance into openness. It can turn a team of individuals into a unit with shared purpose. That's how much power tone holds. Mastering delivery also means knowing your audience. You adjust your energy to match theirs, not to manipulate, but to connect. When your delivery meets people where they are, your words guide them to where you want them to be. And remember, confidence is not how loud you speak, it's how stable your energy feels. When your tone carries calm certainty, people trust your leadership. Every leader has a voice print, a recognizable emotional identity that follows them. When you speak with kindness, consistency, and strength, your voice becomes your brand. It becomes the sound of safety, direction, and hope. Tone is not decoration, it's direction. It tells people where you're coming from and where you're leading them. So master it, study it, record yourself. Listen not just to your words, but to your warmth, to your pauses, to your intention. Ask yourself, would I follow the sound of my own voice? If the answer is yes, you're leading right. Because when your tone carries truth and your delivery carries heart, your message becomes unforgettable. Chapter 4. Build confidence through clarity. Confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing what you mean. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to sound confident. You just need to be the clearest. Clarity is confidence in motion. When your thoughts are organized, your words follow easily. When your message is clean, your tone becomes strong. Confusion is what kills confidence. You start doubting yourself. You hesitate. You rush. You lose rhythm. But clarity removes fear. It replaces uncertainty with control. It replaces hesitation with flow. Confidence doesn't come from pretending to be fearless. It comes from understanding what you're saying, why you're saying it, and how it helps others. That understanding turns nervous energy into grounded presence. Most people think confidence is a personality trait. It's not. It's a byproduct of clarity. When you know your message, your mind relaxes. Your voice steadies. Your delivery flows. In communication, clarity is not just structure, it's leadership. People trust those who speak simply and directly, because simplicity feels safe. The clearer your message, the easier it is for people to believe you. And belief is the foundation of influence. Clarity begins before words are spoken. It starts in your thinking. A cluttered mind can never produce a confident message. So before you speak, clean your thoughts. Ask yourself, what am I really trying to say? What do I want this person to understand or feel? Once that becomes clear, confidence follows naturally. Clarity gives direction to emotion. It channels your energy. It removes the noise. Every leader who communicates with impact knows this truth. If your message isn't clear to you, it will never be clear to them. When your words are filled with clutter, too many details, too many hesitations, your listener gets lost. And when they get lost, your power fades. Clarity is not about saying less, it's about saying what matters. It's about cutting the unnecessary and keeping the essential. Great communicators don't drown people in information. They guide people with insight. They know that the goal of communication is not to impress, but to express. When you speak clearly, people feel respected, because clarity saves time. It saves energy. It shows that you value their attention. Confident communicators don't rush their words. They breathe between thoughts. They give their ideas space to land, because they know silence is part of clarity. A clear message doesn't need to shout. It resonates. It travels through noise because it's simple, structured, and sincere. Think about the leaders you've admired. They speak with calm precision. Their tone feels certain, not arrogant. Their words are easy to follow, yet impossible to forget. That's the power of clarity. Clarity builds confidence because it organizes chaos. It gives your mind a direction. When everything feels scattered, it gives your speech structure when pressure rises. When you walk into a meeting or a conversation, clarity is your armor. It keeps you focused when distractions try to shake you. It reminds you what truly matters. Confidence is not pretending to know everything. It's the courage to say exactly what you mean, no more, no less. Clarity also simplifies emotion. When you know your point, you don't overreact. You don't over-explain. You don't lose control. You stay calm, collected, and convincing. Because a clear mind creates a calm voice. And a calm voice creates confident communication. Clarity isn't just for speaking, it's for listening too. When you're clear in thought, you listen better. You ask sharper questions. You respond with depth, not defensiveness. Confusion makes you insecure. Clarity makes you centered. That's why leaders take time to think before they talk. They organize their message internally before expressing it externally. They understand that the world doesn't reward the person who speaks first. It rewards the person who speaks clearly. In every workplace, clarity is a form of respect. It saves people from misunderstanding. It prevents emotional friction. It creates alignment, and alignment builds trust. When people know what you mean, they stop guessing your intention. They start believing in your consistency, and consistency is what turns communication into credibility. Clarity also protects you from overcompensating. When you're unclear, you start performing. You talk too much, use big words, fill space to hide uncertainty. But when you're clear, you relax. You trust that your message is enough. You don't decorate, you deliver. True confidence lives in simplicity. It doesn't need exaggeration. It doesn't need defense. It just stands firm. The mind naturally trusts what it understands. So when your words are clear, your listener feels safe. And when they feel safe, they open up. That's how influence begins, not through dominance but through clarity. Confidence through clarity also means knowing your boundaries. You don't need to speak on everything. You don't need to fill every silence. Clarity gives you restraint. It teaches you when to speak and when to stay silent. Every pause becomes part of your message. Every silence becomes strength. That's why the most powerful communicators sound effortless, because they aren't chasing attention, they're channeling clarity. When your words are focused, your energy becomes focused. Your delivery becomes steady. Your presence becomes magnetic. That's what people call confidence, not fearlessness, but centeredness. You don't get shaken by reactions. You don't seek validation. You simply deliver your truth with poise. Clarity gives you that poise. It reminds you that communication is not performance, it's connection. And connection requires simplicity. The more direct you are, the deeper your message travels. At work, clarity builds reputation. People begin to trust your words because they trust your structure. They know that when you speak, it means something. You're not guessing, you're guiding. A leader who communicates with clarity becomes a source of stability. Their team knows where they stand. They know what's expected. They know the direction. That's how harmony is born. Not from speeches, but from steady, clear words. Clarity doesn't mean emotionless. It means emotionally intelligent. It means you express your thoughts without confusion, and your feelings without chaos. When you communicate with clarity, you remove tension before it grows. You make decisions faster. You inspire trust instantly. And the more you practice clarity, the stronger your confidence grows. Because every time you make yourself understood, you reinforce your own voice. You start believing in your ability to guide, to express, to lead. That self-belief is real confidence, not arrogance, but assurance. You no longer try to sound important. You start sounding intentional. That shift changes everything. Because at the core, clarity is confidence you can hear. It's the sound of someone who knows where they stand, what they mean, and what they want to create through their words. So before every message, slow down, simplify your thought. Remove what's unnecessary and speak what's true, because when your communication is clear, your confidence becomes natural. And when your confidence becomes natural, your leadership becomes undeniable. Chapter 5. Handle difficult conversations with grace. No one likes difficult conversations, but every great communicator learns to face them. Because avoiding difficult conversations doesn't solve problems, it multiplies them. Silence builds tension. Assumptions create distance. And soon, small misunderstandings turn into big conflicts. Grace is not weakness. It's strength under control. It's the ability to stay calm when others lose balance. It's knowing when to speak and when to pause. It's choosing compassion when ego wants revenge. Handling difficult conversations gracefully is what separates professionals from leaders. Anyone can react. Few can respond. A difficult conversation is not about winning. It's about resolving. It's not about proving someone wrong. It's about finding a way forward. When you enter a tense discussion, your tone decides the outcome long before your words do. If your energy is defensive, the other person will mirror it. If your energy is calm, it disarms resistance. Grace begins with composure. Before you speak, breathe. Slow your heart. Clear your mind. Don't let emotions speak for you. Let clarity speak through you. You can't fix communication while you're still burning inside. Cool your emotion first. Then choose your words. Because once words leave your mouth, you can't take them back. They live in the memory of others. When tension rises, volume rises too. But great communicators lower theirs. They slow down. They make space for understanding. Their calm becomes contagious. In a difficult conversation, listening is your greatest weapon. Let the other person speak. Don't interrupt. Don't rush to defend. Because sometimes people don't need a solution. They need to feel understood. When they finish, pause. A pause shows control. It resets the energy in the room. Then speak slowly, using simple, clear sentences. Avoid blame. Avoid exaggeration. Focus on behavior, not character. Say, this approach didn't work, instead of, you always fail. Language defines atmosphere. Harsh words create walls. Gentle words create bridges. Graceful communicators don't dilute truth. They deliver it kindly. They understand that truth, wrapped in empathy, heals faster than truth delivered with anger. When you need to say something difficult, soften your entry. Start with acknowledgement. I understand this isn't easy. Or, I appreciate you taking time to talk. That one sentence lowers defense. It shows respect. And respect opens doors that arguments never can. Remember, the goal of a difficult conversation is not comfort. It's clarity. You're not trying to make everyone feel good. You're trying to make everyone understand. Grace is the art of staying kind without becoming weak. It's speaking truth without losing compassion. When emotions rise, protect your tone, because tone controls temperature. A calm tone can cool down anger faster than logic ever could. Never meet fire with fire. Meet it with water, with patience, empathy, and poise. Leaders handle confrontation differently. They don't see it as conflict. They see it as communication under pressure. A chance to learn, to lead, and to grow. Every difficult conversation is an opportunity to strengthen trust. If handled well, it doesn't break relationships, it deepens them. Because when someone sees you handle tension calmly, they respect you more. They see you as stable, reliable, emotionally intelligent. And in leadership, stability builds influence faster than authority ever could. Grace also means knowing when to stop. When the discussion goes in circles, step back. Say, let's revisit this after some reflection. Walking away with dignity is not defeat. It's maturity. You can't solve everything in one sitting, but you can preserve respect. And respect is worth more than any short-term victory. In tough conversations, humility is your anchor. Admit your mistakes when needed. Apologize without excuses. Honesty dissolves tension faster than defensiveness ever will. When you apologize sincerely, it doesn't lower your power, it raises your integrity. Because people don't follow perfect communicators, they follow honest ones. Grace requires empathy. Ask yourself, what might this person be feeling right now? When you shift focus from reaction to understanding, you change the entire direction of the conversation. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It means seeing from their side before explaining yours. It means you care enough to understand before you expect to be understood. That shift turns conflict into connection. Graceful communication also means being aware of your timing. Don't deliver heavy discussions when emotions are hot. Wait for calm. Choose moments when people can actually hear you. Timing turns truth into transformation. At work, difficult conversations are inevitable, with colleagues, clients, or even leaders. But how you handle them decides whether you build bridges or burn them. You can't control others' reactions, but you can control your response. And that control is where true power lives. Grace doesn't speak to dominate. It speaks to understand. It doesn't rush to fix everything. It stays patient enough to let growth unfold. Even when someone disrespects you, grace gives you strength to rise above it. Because dignity speaks louder than anger. People might forget your words, but they'll never forget how you carried yourself under pressure. That memory defines your reputation. In every difficult conversation, your calm is your credibility. When others lose control, your composure becomes leadership. Grace is your invisible armor. It protects you from impulsive reactions and emotional regret. It lets you walk away knowing you stayed true to your values. Not every conversation will end perfectly. Some will remain unresolved. Some will end in silence. But grace ensures you never lose your integrity in the process. Grace is not a strategy, it's a choice. A daily decision to speak from peace, not pride. To communicate from understanding, not ego. To preserve connection, not crush it. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. You'll find that your voice naturally steadies in chaos. Your tone softens without losing firmness. Your presence calms others even before you speak. That's when you've mastered it, the art of handling difficult conversations with grace. You're no longer afraid of conflict. You're guided by clarity. You're grounded in calm. Because grace isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about leading through it. With strength, honesty, and compassion working together. The most powerful people are not the ones who always win arguments. They're the ones who leave peace behind them wherever they go. And that's what grace does. It leaves peace in its path. When you learn to handle difficult conversations gracefully, you don't just communicate better. You evolve as a leader, as a person, and as a voice that heals instead of hurts. That's not just communication. That's transformation. Chapter 6. Communicate with emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the silent skill behind every great communicator. It's the difference between speaking and connecting, between hearing and understanding, between reacting and responding. You can have the best vocabulary, the strongest voice, the most perfect grammar. But if you don't know how to manage emotions, yours and others, your communication will always fall short. Because emotion is the heartbeat of every message. People may forget your words, but they never forget how your words made them feel. That feeling, that energy, is what emotional intelligence controls. At its core, emotional intelligence is awareness. Awareness of yourself, awareness of others, and awareness of the space between. It's knowing what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and how it's affecting your tone, your timing, and your message. When you communicate with emotional intelligence, you speak from understanding, not impulse. You know when to push and when to pause. You sense when to comfort and when to confront. You respond to energy, not just words. Every conversation has two layers, the surface and the soul. The surface is what's said, the soul is what's meant. Emotional intelligence allows you to see both. The person might say, "I'm fine," but their eyes say they're not. They might smile, but their tone carries exhaustion. Emotionally intelligent communicators notice those invisible details. They don't just listen to reply, they listen to understand. That's what makes them leaders. Leadership is emotional awareness in action. It's knowing that before you can influence others, you have to connect with them emotionally. Because people don't follow instructions, they follow understanding. At work, emotional intelligence changes everything. It turns arguments into discussions. It turns feedback into growth. It turns misunderstanding into trust. The emotionally intelligent communicator doesn't absorb others' chaos. They regulate it. They don't mirror anger, they manage it. They don't take words personally, they read them with perspective. They understand that behind every behavior is a feeling, and behind every feeling is a need. That's the key. When you identify the need, you can guide the emotion. Emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness. You can't understand others until you understand yourself. You can't manage their emotions if you can't manage your own. Every word you speak carries the vibration of your inner state. If you're tense inside, your words will sound sharp. If you're calm inside, your words will carry peace. That's why self-control is the foundation of all great communication. It's not suppression, it's awareness. It's the ability to observe your emotions without letting them drive the conversation. When something frustrates you, pause. Breathe before you react. Ask yourself, is this emotion helping me express my point or hurting it? That moment of awareness separates leaders from the rest. Because anyone can speak, but it takes wisdom to speak with emotional clarity. Self-awareness also means owning your impact. If your tone hurt someone, acknowledge it. If your timing was wrong, fix it. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means correcting them with humility. That humility builds trust faster than perfection ever could. Empathy is the second layer of emotional intelligence. It's the bridge between your emotion and theirs. It's the quiet voice inside that says, "I see you. I feel you. I understand." Empathy makes your communication human. It softens your tone without weakening your message. It gives your leadership warmth. When you communicate with empathy, you're not just delivering information, you're delivering care. Even difficult messages become easier to receive when wrapped in empathy, because empathy tells the listener, "I may not agree with you, but I respect how you feel." And respect is the foundation of all emotional connection. In the workplace, emotionally intelligent communicators resolve conflict before it spreads. They sense tension early and address it privately. They listen to feedback without getting defensive. They give feedback without being cruel. They understand that emotion is not the enemy. It's the signal. And if you listen to that signal, you can guide the conversation toward peace. Emotional intelligence also means reading the room. Before you speak, sense the energy. Is the mood heavy? Are people tired, anxious, distracted? Your tone should adjust to the environment, because effective communication is not just about expression, it's about alignment. You meet people where they are, not where you want them to be. The emotionally intelligent leader knows how to shift energy. When the room feels tense, they speak with calm. When the room feels low, they speak with hope. When the room feels scattered, they speak with focus. Their presence becomes the thermostat. They don't reflect the temperature, they set it. That's what makes emotional intelligence so powerful. It gives you influence without force. Emotional intelligence also protects you from taking things personally. In difficult moments, people might project their frustration onto you. But instead of reacting, you recognize it as emotion, not attack. You separate their feeling from your identity. And in doing so, you stay centered. That's grace in action. That's maturity. When you stay calm in emotional storms, others begin to trust your stability. They see you as the person who brings peace when things fall apart. That's leadership at its highest form. Not control, but calm. Emotional intelligence also transforms how you use words. You become aware that language has weight. You choose phrases that build, not break. You avoid sarcasm in serious moments. You replace "you always" with "I noticed." You stop labeling, start describing. Those small changes in words change how people feel. And when you change feelings, you change outcomes. Every emotionally intelligent communicator practices emotional timing. They don't give feedback when someone's defensive. They don't deliver news when emotions are raw. They wait for calm. They know that truth given at the wrong time becomes noise. Timing is empathy in motion. Emotionally intelligent communication is also about recovery. When a conversation goes wrong, you don't hide. You re-engage. You apologize if needed. You clarify misunderstandings. You repair the bridge instead of burning it. That's what emotional maturity looks like, accountability with grace. In leadership, emotional intelligence creates loyalty. People follow those who make them feel safe, not scared. They follow those who understand, not those who judge. They follow those who make room for emotion instead of running from it. Because every human being wants to feel seen, and emotional intelligence is how you make them feel seen, even in silence. It's in the soft tone after a hard truth. It's in the patient pause after frustration. It's in the willingness to stay present when others withdraw. That's where communication becomes healing. Emotional intelligence turns you from a communicator into a connector. You stop chasing perfection. You start practicing awareness. You stop trying to be right. You start aiming to be real. And that realness, that authenticity, is what gives your voice lasting impact. Because people don't open up to perfect communicators, they open up to honest ones. The ones who can handle emotion without judgment, who can stay kind under pressure, who can balance truth with tenderness. That's emotional intelligence in its purest form. Truth without tension, strength without sharpness, influence without ego. The more emotionally aware you become, the more peaceful your communication feels. Your tone softens, your words slow, your presence deepens. And that's when your message starts to reach not just the mind, but the heart. Because communication without emotion is forgettable. But communication with emotional intelligence, that lives forever. Chapter 7. Speak with authenticity and presence. Authenticity is power. Presence is peace. Together they create a voice that people trust. In every room, there's always noise. People talking fast, pretending, performing, trying to sound confident. But the voice that cuts through the noise is the one that's real. Because truth always sounds different. It has a tone of calm, not performance. It doesn't push, it resonates. Speaking with authenticity means speaking from truth, not ego. It means choosing honesty over perfection, clarity over cleverness, connection over control. When you speak with authenticity, people don't just hear you, they feel you. Authenticity doesn't mean saying everything you think. It means meaning everything you say. It's not about being raw for the sake of attention. It's about being real for the sake of trust. People can sense authenticity within seconds. They can hear it in your tone, see it in your eyes, feel it in your energy. You can't fake it for long, because authenticity is not a style, it's a state of being. You can tell when someone is speaking to impress. Their words sound heavy, their tone feels tight. But when someone speaks from truth, their words flow like water. Their energy feels light. Their message feels alive. The best communicators aren't actors. They're aligned. Their inner world matches their outer words. There's no pretending, no performance, just presence. Presence is what makes your authenticity visible. It's your ability to be fully here, not stuck in your thoughts, not worried about how you sound, but grounded in this moment, with this person, with this message. When you're truly present, your communication slows down. Your words get clearer. Your tone gets softer. Your energy becomes magnetic. People can feel when you're really there with them. They relax. They trust you, because presence tells them, you matter. You can't build connection if your mind is somewhere else. You can't sound confident if your energy is distracted. Presence gives your communication power by giving it focus. It's the difference between talking to someone and talking with someone. Most people think they're communicating, but they're just waiting to speak. They're half listening, half rehearsing. Their eyes are there, but their mind is miles away. Presence brings you back. It pulls your attention from the future or past into now. And now, that's where real communication lives. When you speak from presence, you stop trying to be perfect. You stop trying to be someone else. You become effortless. And effortless feels powerful. Authenticity gives your voice meaning. Presence gives it weight. Together, they turn words into influence. Every time you speak, people don't just listen to your message. They listen to your energy. They sense if your words match your feelings. They sense if you believe what you're saying. That alignment between your intention and expression is what makes your communication unforgettable. You can learn techniques, body language, gestures, but without authenticity, all of it feels empty, because authenticity is the soul of communication. When you speak from truth, you free yourself from performance. You no longer need approval. You no longer chase applause. You no longer fear silence. Because authenticity gives you peace. You stop over-explaining. You stop pretending. You stop wearing the mask that drains your energy. You start trusting your own voice again. That's the secret every leader learns. Authentic communication doesn't come from confidence. Confidence comes from authenticity. When you speak as who you are, not who you think you should be, you become unshakable, because no one can compete with truth. People may not agree with you, but they'll respect you. They'll trust your honesty even when they don't like your message, because authenticity feels rare, and people value what's rare. Presence deepens that authenticity. It's not just mental focus, it's emotional grounding. It's being in control of your energy, even when emotions run high. When you're present, you listen better. You catch details others miss. You feel the rhythm of the room. You adjust your tone naturally. Presence is sensitivity with strength. You stay open, but never lose yourself. You stay aware, but never overwhelmed. That calm awareness makes people feel safe around you. They sense that you're not just reacting. You're responding. You're here fully, not trapped inside your thoughts. When you're authentic and present, your communication starts to breathe. You leave space between words. You let silence do part of the talking. You let emotion flow through naturally, without forcing it, without controlling it. Because when you're real, your presence doesn't need performance. It just is. Every great leader has this quality. They don't have to shout. They don't have to dominate. They simply speak from a place of peace and truth. And that combination, calm plus clarity, is magnetic. People lean in. They trust instantly. They listen longer. Because authenticity has a sound. It's calm. It's grounded. It's confident without being loud. Authenticity and presence are built through practice. You can't fake being real, but you can train yourself to stay present. Start by slowing down. When you speak, feel your breath. Notice your tone. Notice how your words sound as they leave your mouth. Be aware of your body language. Is your posture open? Are your eyes kind? Does your voice match your intention? That awareness turns moments into mastery. If your thoughts drift while listening, bring yourself back again and again. Presence is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Authenticity also grows with self-acceptance. You can't sound real if you don't feel real. If you're hiding parts of yourself, your voice will always tremble. Accept who you are, your voice, your tone, your rhythm. Don't copy someone else's style. Your uniqueness is your authority. People connect with imperfection far more than they connect with performance. Because imperfection feels human, and humans follow humanity. Presence also means being emotionally available. When you talk, don't just share information, share emotion. Let your passion show. Let your sincerity breathe. Don't filter your energy so much that your words lose warmth. People remember energy before content. They remember emotion before logic. That's why authenticity and presence work together. They make your message memorable because it feels alive. Even silence becomes powerful when it comes from presence. Even disagreement feels safe when it comes from authenticity. Authenticity builds connection. Presence builds credibility. And together, they create leadership. When you're authentic, people trust your words. When you're present, they trust your awareness. That combination creates influence that no title can buy. Because communication isn't about proving, it's about connecting. It's not about controlling, it's about aligning. And alignment is what authenticity and presence create. When you walk into a room fully present, when you speak from truth, when your tone carries peace, the room changes. People listen differently. They soften. They focus. They feel safe to be real too. That's your power, not to dominate the room, but to balance it. That's what authentic presence does. It changes the atmosphere. You don't have to demand attention. You earn it through your calm. You earn it through your honesty. You earn it through your ability to be fully here, right now. When you master authenticity and presence, you stop chasing approval because you realize you already have it. You have your own approval. You have your own peace. And that's enough. You no longer perform to impress. You communicate to connect. You no longer hide behind words. You use them to reveal truth. That truth, delivered with presence, is what touches people's souls. That's leadership beyond language. That's communication beyond words. Chapter 8. The Art of Nonverbal Communication. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Because what you do when you're not talking, that's what people actually hear. Nonverbal communication is the unspoken truth behind every message. It's the tone of your presence, the expression on your face, the rhythm in your gestures, the energy in your posture. Your words tell people what you think. Your body tells them who you are. In every interaction, your nonverbal cues speak before your mouth does. Before you even say a word, people have already decided how they feel about you. They've read your body language, your eyes, your energy. That first impression, it's not made by what you say, but how you show up. A communication is 7% words, 38% tone, and 55% body language. That means more than half of what you're saying has nothing to do with speech. So if you want to communicate like a leader, you must master the art of the unspoken. Nonverbal communication begins with awareness. You can't control what you don't notice. Most people move unconsciously, crossing their arms, frowning without realizing, looking away when uncomfortable. But leaders become aware of their physical signals. They learn to make their body language intentional, not accidental. Posture is power. When you stand tall, you project strength and openness. When your shoulders slump, you signal uncertainty or exhaustion. The body reflects the mind. If your thoughts are heavy, your posture sinks. If your thoughts are clear, your posture lifts. That's why confident communication begins with the body before it begins with words. The way you carry yourself sets the tone for how others carry your message. Your face speaks too. Your eyes are emotional transmitters. They tell stories your mouth never says. When you look at someone and truly see them, they feel it. When your gaze is distracted, they feel that too. Eye contact builds trust faster than any title. It says, "I'm here with you." It creates connection before a single word leaves your lips. But eye contact isn't about staring, it's about sincerity. It's the difference between looking at someone and looking into them. The smallest expressions can transform communication. A genuine smile, a soft nod, a relaxed brow, these signals tell others that you're approachable, present and engaged. People don't open up to tension, they open up to warmth. And warmth can't be faked. It's the reflection of calm inside you. Your gestures also carry meaning. Hands are extensions of your voice. They shape energy, emphasize rhythm, and give life to your ideas. When you speak with your hands naturally, it adds emotional dimension to your message. But when your gestures are erratic or forced, they distract. Every movement should match your intention. When your body aligns with your words, authenticity becomes visible. Stillness can be just as powerful as movement. Sometimes the most commanding leaders move very little. They don't waste motion. They don't fidget. They let silence and posture do the work. Because when your energy is centered, people can feel your presence even in your stillness. Leaders don't just fill space. They own it calmly. Your voice is also part of nonverbal communication. The rhythm, the pauses, the emphasis, it all tells people what matters. Sometimes what you don't say, the way you breathe between words, speaks more truth than 100 sentences. The tone of your delivery is emotion in motion. It shapes how your message lands in the listener's heart. A steady tone builds confidence. A harsh tone builds resistance. Nonverbal mastery is about emotional control through expression. You can't hide frustration if your body tenses every time you feel it. You can't fake interest if your eyes wander while someone talks. Your body always tells the truth. That's why emotional awareness is at the center of body language. The moment you feel something, your body reacts. So before you can master your expressions, you must master your emotions. Take a breath before entering any conversation. Reset your energy. Decide what kind of presence you want to bring. Because people feel your presence long before they hear your words. At work, nonverbal communication is the key to influence. A leader who speaks calmly, makes steady eye contact, and uses open gestures creates trust instantly. They make people feel heard without saying much. They make people feel valued through tone, posture, and presence. Trust doesn't always need words. It needs consistency and energy. In stressful conversations, your body language becomes your anchor. If you stay calm, your calm becomes contagious. When you lean forward slightly, it signals engagement. When you uncross your arms, it signals openness. When you maintain soft, balanced eye contact, it signals safety. And safety is the foundation of honest communication. Great communicators understand this invisible power. They know that connection is not built on what you say, but on what people feel when they are around you. Your energy either invites or intimidates. Your posture either builds comfort or creates distance. Your expression either says you can trust me or stay away. Every movement you make speaks a language, and that language is more universal than any spoken one. Nonverbal communication crosses barriers. It connects people across cultures, languages, and beliefs. A smile, a kind nod, an open stance. These gestures belong to no country. They belong to humanity. That's why mastering nonverbal communication makes you not just a better speaker, but a better human. When you become intentional with your body language, you stop reacting. You start choosing. You choose to appear calm even when your mind is racing. You choose to stand tall even when you feel small. You choose to smile even when the situation feels tense. That's not pretending, that's leading. Because leadership is not about showing how you feel, it's about choosing how you want to make others feel. Nonverbal mastery doesn't mean manipulating gestures. It means embodying your message. It means becoming so aligned that your presence and purpose are one. When you speak from truth, your body naturally aligns with your words. When your heart is calm, your tone reflects it. When your intention is pure, your eyes reveal it. You don't need to perform. You just need to be aware. That awareness turns communication into connection. Next time you walk into a room, pause for 2 seconds. Check your posture. Relax your shoulders. Lift your chin slightly. Breathe deeply. Smile softly. Feel the ground under your feet. That's presence. That's the body saying, I belong here. From that moment, everything changes. Your tone steadies. Your confidence rises. Your message flows with ease. Nonverbal communication is not an accessory to speech. It's the foundation of it. It's the physical expression of your inner clarity. It's what transforms words into experience. When your tone, expression, and body align, your message feels complete. Your audience doesn't just hear it, they believe it. That's why leaders spend years mastering their presence, because presence is persuasion. You don't need to dominate the space. You just need to own your energy in it. The art of nonverbal communication is not loud. It's subtle. It's in the way you walk into a room, the way you greet someone, the way you look when you listen. It's in the invisible details, how your face softens when someone opens up, how your breathing slows when tension rises, how your eyes hold empathy when words can't. These small signals change everything. When people feel safe in your presence, they speak honestly. When they feel understood by your energy, they trust you deeply. And when they trust you, they follow you, not because you command them, but because your presence inspires them. That's the true art of communication. When your silence carries meaning, when your gestures reflect calm, when your entire being becomes your message. Nonverbal communication doesn't end when the talking stops. It continues in the way you listen, the way you react, the way you leave a room. People remember your energy long after your words fade. So let your energy speak well of you. Move with intention. Stand with confidence. Speak with your body as much as with your voice. Because every time you show up, you're teaching people how to read you. And when your nonverbal message says, I'm present, I'm real, I'm confident, I care, you don't just communicate, you lead. Chapter 9. The power of listening to understand. Listening is not waiting for your turn to speak. It's not a pause between your sentences. It's the space where real communication begins. Most people hear, but very few truly listen. Hearing is physical. Listening is emotional. It's the act of being fully present with another person's truth, without judgment, without defense, without interruption. The most powerful communicators aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who listen the best. Because listening isn't silence, it's strategy. It's connection. It's how you gather truth before you respond. When you truly listen, people can feel it. They feel seen. They feel respected. They feel safe. That safety is what builds trust faster than any eloquent speech ever could. Leaders listen not to reply, but to understand, because they know. Understanding builds alignment, and alignment builds progress. Listening with purpose is an art of emotional presence. You step into the speaker's world for a moment. You see through their eyes. You feel what they feel. You sense what their words are trying to protect or reveal. That level of awareness changes everything. It transforms arguments into clarity. It turns complaints into feedback. It turns frustration into partnership. Listening is not passive, it's an active discipline. It requires stillness, patience, and empathy. It requires you to silence your ego long enough to make space for someone else's truth. The reason most people fail to communicate is not because they don't know how to talk, but because they don't know how to listen. When you interrupt someone, you're telling them, "My thought matters more than yours." When you judge before they finish, you're saying, "I've already decided who you are." But when you listen with full presence, you say, "You matter." That one feeling can transform relationships, teams, and entire organizations. Great listeners don't listen to fix, they listen to understand. They don't rush to advice. They offer space. Because most of the time, people don't need a solution, they need to feel heard. When someone feels heard, their emotion softens, their guard drops, their willingness to cooperate rises. That's why listening is not weakness, it's wisdom. Listening also teaches you patience. It shows you how to hold silence with confidence. You don't have to fill every quiet moment with words. Sometimes silence says, "I respect what you're saying," enough to give it space. That silence holds power. Leaders who listen carefully make better decisions. Because they don't react to fragments, they respond to the full picture. They know that before you can lead effectively, you must first understand completely. Listening to understand doesn't just mean hearing words, it means reading emotion. It's paying attention to tone, pace, and what's not being said. Every pause hides a feeling. Every hesitation hides a fear. Every repetition hides a need. Emotion speaks in between words, and true listeners know how to hear it. At work, active listening changes the entire atmosphere. When team members feel heard, they contribute more freely. When employees feel understood, they perform with passion. When leaders listen deeply, conflict fades. Because listening is not about control, it's about connection. Listening creates balance in relationships. It gives others permission to be real. It opens doors that argument can't. When you listen with understanding, you're not just hearing their story, you're honoring their humanity. That's why listening is one of the most powerful acts of leadership. Because leadership isn't about commanding attention, it's about giving it. When you give someone your attention, you're giving them validation, respect, and space to exist. Then that's what every human being longs for: to be seen, to be heard, to be valued. Listening with empathy is also about removing assumptions. Don't assume you know what someone means before they finish. Let them reveal their truth in their own rhythm. Your job as a listener isn't to decode, it's to discover. It's to stay curious instead of certain. Curiosity keeps conversations alive. Certainty kills them. When you listen with curiosity, you disarm defensiveness. The other person feels safe enough to open up. They stop hiding behind half-truths. They begin to share what really matters. And that's where solutions are born. Not from talking louder, but from listening deeper. Listening also requires emotional humility. Sometimes you'll hear things you don't like, but that's part of growth. Don't rush to defend. Stay open. Don't listen to correct. Listen to connect. When you stay open, you give people permission to be honest. And honesty, even when uncomfortable, strengthens trust. Listening is how leaders learn. Every great communicator listens before they lead. They gather stories, perspectives, and emotions. They absorb before they advise. Because wisdom doesn't come from talking, it comes from paying attention. True listeners don't listen for agreement, they listen for understanding. They seek to learn what's behind the words. They seek to understand why someone feels the way they do. And that why, that hidden meaning, is the real message behind every conversation. Listening also requires energy discipline. Don't listen while distracted. Put the phone down. Make eye contact. Face the person fully. Show them, with your body, that they matter. Because presence is proof of respect. You can say, "I'm listening," but if your body is turned away, your energy says something else. Non-verbal listening, your posture, your nods, your stillness, tells people more than your words ever could. And when people feel that genuine attention, they open up naturally. In a world full of noise, listening is a rare gift. Everyone wants to be heard, but few are willing to do the hearing. That's why good listeners stand out. They lead without trying. They influence without effort, because people gravitate toward those who make them feel understood. Listening with empathy doesn't mean you agree with everything. It means you care enough to understand it first. Understanding doesn't require agreement, it requires respect, and respect is what makes communication sustainable. When you listen with patience, you transform tension into trust. When you listen with attention, you transform confusion into clarity. When you listen with compassion, you transform distance into understanding. That's the power of listening to understand. The deeper you listen, the less you misunderstand. The calmer you listen, the more truth you hear. The more you understand others, the more influence you gain. Because influence is not about talking people into things, it's about understanding them so deeply that your words begin where their heart already is. Great communicators don't force agreement. They guide it, gently, intelligently, compassionately. And it all begins with listening. Listening is the invisible thread that holds relationships together. It's the foundation of every great team, every great partnership, every great leader. Without listening, communication collapses. With listening, even silence feels meaningful. To listen is to lead. To listen is to care. To listen is to create connection that words alone could never build. And when you master the art of listening to understand, you no longer communicate just with words. You communicate with your heart. That's when every conversation becomes transformation. Chapter 10. Communicate with clarity and confidence. Clarity creates confidence, and confidence gives life to your words. Every great communicator has one thing in common. They make people understand, not just listen. Their words don't wander. Their tone doesn't tremble. Their message lands. Because clarity is not about saying more, it's about saying what matters. When you speak with clarity, your words have weight. They carry direction. They cut through noise. They leave no confusion behind. Confidence without clarity is arrogance. Clarity without confidence is weakness. But when both meet, that's power. Clarity and confidence together make your communication unstoppable. To speak with clarity, you first have to think with clarity. You can't explain what you don't understand. You can't guide others through confusion if you haven't guided yourself first. Before every important conversation, take a moment to ask yourself, what do I really want to say? What outcome do I want? What truth must be spoken clearly? This inner reflection turns noise into purpose. It organizes your thoughts. It cleans your message of unnecessary words. Most people don't communicate clearly because they think while they talk. Their mind races faster than their mouth. Their sentences overlap their intention. And the result? Misunderstanding. But great communicators don't rush their words. They breathe. They pause. They allow silence to hold meaning. They let the listener absorb before they continue. Confidence lives inside that pause. Because confidence isn't loud. It's calm. It's not about overpowering others. It's about being so sure of your truth that you don't need to push. A confident communicator doesn't force respect. They earn it through composure. When you speak with clarity, you make it easy for others to follow you. When you speak with confidence, you make them want to. Clarity removes doubt. Confidence removes fear. Together, they turn communication into leadership. Your message should feel like a straight path, not a maze. Each word should have purpose. Each pause should have intention. Clarity comes from simplicity. Simplicity doesn't mean dumbing down, it means removing clutter. It means stripping away words that decorate instead of define. Complexity confuses people. Simplicity moves them. Think of the greatest leaders, teachers, or communicators in history. Their power didn't come from big words, it came from clear ones. They didn't need to impress with vocabulary, they inspired with vision. Because clarity gives your message direction, and direction builds confidence not only in you, but in your audience. When people understand you, they trust you. And trust is the bridge between words and influence. To build that bridge, you must respect your listener's attention. Don't waste it with unnecessary explanations. Say what you mean kindly, directly, fearlessly. Confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's the mastery of it. Every communicator feels nervous at times. But the difference is, confident people use that energy to stay alert, not anxious. They turn their heartbeat into rhythm, their breath into balance, their pause into power. They understand that confidence is not something you show, it's something you carry. It's in your posture. It's in your tone. It's in your eyes that say, I believe in what I'm saying. That belief, that conviction, gives life to your message. People don't follow perfect speakers. They follow sincere ones. Confidence comes from alignment, when your words, tone, and intention move in the same direction. If your words say one thing, but your tone says another, people won't trust your message. They'll feel the disconnect. That's why clarity and confidence must start within. You can't speak clearly until your mind is clear. You can't sound confident until your heart believes in your message. Before you walk into any conversation, ask yourself, am I grounded in what I believe? Because grounded belief creates natural authority. Authority isn't about titles, it's about certainty. It's the quiet strength that says, I know what I stand for. When you communicate from that place, your words find their rhythm. Your sentences stop stumbling. Your tone becomes steady. Your energy feels anchored. Clarity also comes from empathy. When you understand your listener, you shape your message to meet their understanding. You choose language that fits their world, not yours. You adjust your tone to match their emotion, not your ego. That's how you make complex ideas simple, by speaking to hearts, not just minds. Confidence, too, grows when you care more about impact than impression. When you stop worrying about being liked and start focusing on being understood. Because clarity is not about being perfect, it's about being precise. Confidence is not about being loud, it's about being aligned. Your confidence doesn't come from your volume, it comes from your vision. When your vision is clear, your voice becomes unstoppable. At work, clarity and confidence separate leaders from employees. An employee speaks to complete a task. A leader speaks to create understanding. An employee talks to be heard. A leader communicates to create direction. When you speak clearly, your team knows where to go. When you speak confidently, they believe in going there with you. That's leadership in its simplest form. The power of clarity also lies in listening. When you listen carefully, you speak wisely. Because clarity grows in silence, not noise. If you rush to reply, your message loses shape. But when you take time to understand, your message lands exactly where it should. Confidence doesn't mean having every answer. It means being comfortable saying, I don't know, but I'll find out. That honesty builds more trust than fake certainty ever could. Confidence isn't arrogance. Arrogance speaks to dominate. Confidence speaks to deliver. Confidence respects others' voices while trusting its own. It doesn't compete, it contributes. It doesn't boast, it builds. That kind of confidence is quiet, but unshakable. It doesn't need validation to exist. It doesn't crumble under criticism. It stands firm because it's rooted in truth. Every time you speak, imagine your message as light. If it's scattered, people see flickers. If it's focused, people see brilliance. Clarity is that focus. Confidence is the brightness. Together, they illuminate understanding. When you master clarity and confidence, your communication becomes less about performance and more about presence. You stop chasing perfection. You start channeling peace. You stop trying to impress. You start trying to express. That's when communication becomes leadership. Because the most powerful voices are not the ones that talk the most. They're the ones that make the most sense. Your clarity helps others think clearly. Your confidence helps others feel safe. Your calm helps others believe in direction. That's what great communicators do. They bring order where there is noise, peace where there is pressure, and meaning where there is confusion. And they do it not by force, but by clarity. So before your next meeting, your next presentation, your next crucial talk, slow down. Find your center. Remember what matters. Speak it simply. Deliver it with peace. Because communication isn't about showing what you know. It's about transferring understanding. Speak slowly. Mean every word. And trust your silence as much as your voice. That balance of clarity and confidence is what makes a communicator unforgettable. People may forget your points, but they will never forget how clear you made them feel. That's the final secret of great communication. It's not just heard, it's felt. And clarity and confidence together make that feeling last. Chapter 11. Influence through empathy and respect. Influence doesn't begin with power. It begins with empathy. Because real influence isn't about control, it's about connection. You don't lead people by forcing them to follow. You lead them by making them feel understood. Empathy is the quiet force that turns communication into trust. And respect is what keeps that trust alive. Together, they form the foundation of influence that lasts longer than authority ever could. Empathy is not weakness. It's emotional intelligence in motion. It's the courage to feel what others feel without losing yourself. It's the strength to listen, understand, and respond with humanity, even when things are difficult. Every great communicator carries empathy like a compass. It helps them navigate complex conversations, diverse perspectives, and emotional storms. They don't just see the world through their own lens. They borrow someone else's for a moment. That small shift changes everything. Empathy builds bridges where logic alone builds walls. You can win arguments with logic, but you win hearts with empathy. And when you win the heart, you earn the kind of influence that doesn't fade when the meeting ends. Respect gives empathy its strength. It turns understanding into action. It's not enough to say, "I understand how you feel." You have to show it through tone, through patience, through fairness. Respect is how empathy becomes visible. At work, empathy and respect are the invisible glue that holds teams together. Without them, even the most skilled communicators lose their impact. Because people don't respond to instructions, they respond to how those instructions make them feel. When people feel respected, they become receptive. When they feel dismissed, they resist. Influence isn't about speaking louder, it's about making people feel valued enough to listen. Empathy teaches you timing. It helps you sense when someone's overwhelmed, when they're silent, when they need space. It helps you read between the words. It helps you communicate with care. A leader who speaks with empathy doesn't just deliver a message, they deliver meaning. They don't say, "You have to do this." They say, "I understand why this is hard, but we'll do it together." That one sentence transforms pressure into partnership. Respect reinforces that message. It shows through small details: how you address people, how you listen without interruption, how you give credit, how you acknowledge effort. These details build emotional currency, and emotional currency creates loyalty that no title can command. Because people don't follow bosses. They follow humans who make them feel seen. Empathy starts with presence. You can't connect with what you're not present for. When someone speaks to you, give them your full attention. Don't glance at your phone. Don't half listen while waiting to reply. Look at them. Listen with your eyes. Feel the emotion behind their words. That's how respect begins, in presence. Presence tells people, "You matter enough for me to give you this moment." And in today's world of constant noise and distraction, presence is rare, which makes it powerful. When you make people feel heard, you open the door for influence. Because once they feel understood, they're ready to understand you. That's the secret of great communicators. They don't rush to persuade. They start by understanding. They meet emotion with empathy and opinion with respect. They know that influence is not a transaction, it's a relationship. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everyone. It means honoring their perspective even when you disagree. It means saying, "I see why you feel that way," instead of "you're wrong." Respect allows disagreement to exist without disrespect. It keeps conversation alive even when opinions clash. Because when people feel respected, they can handle truth without feeling attacked. They can receive feedback without becoming defensive. They can change their mind without feeling humiliated. That's the power of respectful communication. It creates space for growth. And in that space, influence is born. Influence built on fear disappears the moment authority leaves the room. But influence built on empathy and respect stays long after you're gone. Because people remember how you made them feel, not just what you said. They remember the tone that comforted them, the patience that guided them, the dignity you gave them when things went wrong. Empathy and respect aren't communication tactics, they're character traits. They can't be faked. They grow from genuine care. When you truly care about people, you naturally speak in ways that build trust. Your voice softens, your tone steadies, your words become healing. That's when your communication moves from professional to powerful. Leaders who lack empathy often mistake fear for respect. They think obedience equals loyalty. But obedience fades when opportunity changes. Respect, once earned, lasts for life. Empathy doesn't weaken authority, it humanizes it. When you lead with empathy, people don't see your title, they see your understanding. And understanding creates emotional safety. Safety builds trust, and trust builds influence. That's the invisible hierarchy of communication. When you communicate with empathy, you're not trying to dominate emotions, you're trying to understand them. When you communicate with respect, you're not trying to control others, you're giving them dignity. Empathy opens the heart, respect opens the mind, and influence grows where both exist together. You can't truly influence someone you don't respect, and you can't respect someone you refuse to understand. That's why empathy and respect always walk hand in hand. At work, when tension rises, empathy softens it. When misunderstanding grows, respect dissolves it. When communication breaks down, empathy rebuilds it. An empathetic tone can calm a frustrated client. A respectful pause can save a relationship. A kind word can turn a confrontation into collaboration. That's not emotion, that's leadership. True influence is quiet. It doesn't demand, it inspires. It doesn't shout, it guides. It doesn't control, it connects. People listen to you not because they have to, but because they want to. Because your presence makes them feel understood, not judged. That's the kind of power empathy and respect create, power without force. Empathy also helps you manage your own emotions. When you understand others, you stop taking things personally. You realize that people act from their pain, not their purpose. That awareness frees you from resentment. Respect, on the other hand, keeps your boundaries strong. It reminds you that caring doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. You can be kind and still be firm. You can be compassionate and still be clear. That balance, empathy with strength, respect with firmness, is what defines emotionally intelligent communication. Every great communicator carries both qualities in harmony. They listen deeply, but they also lead decisively. They show care, but they never compromise truth. Because influence without boundaries becomes manipulation, and respect without empathy becomes distance. When empathy and respect move together, communication becomes art. It becomes a rhythm, soft yet strong, gentle yet grounded, calm yet commanding. That rhythm changes the energy of every room you enter. People notice it. They feel safe. They listen closer. They start to mirror your calm. That's real leadership. That's real influence. When you finish speaking, They don't just remember your message, they remember your heart. They carry your words not as instructions, but as inspiration. Because empathy and respect don't just teach people what to do, they teach people how to be. And that's the highest form of influence. So when you communicate, speak to understand, not impress. Lead with empathy. Guide with respect. Let every word you say come from care, not control. Because the world doesn't need louder voices. It needs gentler ones. It needs communicators who make people feel safe to grow, safe to fail, safe to be human. When you become that kind of communicator, you don't just influence minds, you transform hearts. And that's the kind of influence that never fades. Chapter 12. Leadership through Communication Mastery. Leadership isn't about titles. It's not about authority, rank, or seniority. It's about influence, and influence begins with communication. The way you speak, the way you listen, the way you make people feel, that's what defines you as a leader. Communication mastery isn't about perfection. It's about connection. It's the ability to bring clarity where there's confusion, calm where there's chaos, and unity where there's division. Words can move minds, but presence, the energy behind those words, moves hearts. And that's where leadership lives. Every leader who truly transforms others does it through communication, not just through what they say, but through how they make people feel when they speak. Because leadership isn't about giving commands, it's about creating understanding. When you master communication, you don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to prove your worth. Your tone, your presence, your authenticity, they do the speaking for you. The best communicators don't talk at people. They talk to them. They don't fill the room with noise. They fill it with meaning. They don't demand attention. They earn it with sincerity. Mastery in communication doesn't happen overnight. It's a lifelong journey of awareness, empathy, and growth. It starts with listening. It grows through clarity. It matures with confidence. And it flourishes through consistency. When you understand people, you influence them. When you respect them, you retain them. When you inspire them, you lead them. That's communication mastery. It's not about how impressive your words are. It's about how intentional your message is. You can speak fewer words, but if they carry truth, care, and clarity, they'll echo longer than speeches filled with noise. A leader who masters communication knows this simple truth. Every word carries weight. Every silence sends a signal. Every tone shapes trust. So they speak carefully. They pause wisely. They listen deeply. They know that leadership begins not with "do this," but with "let's do this together." That single shift from command to connection changes everything. Communication mastery also means emotional mastery, because you can't lead others if you can't lead your own emotions. When pressure rises, when criticism comes, when uncertainty clouds your path, your ability to stay calm, clear, and compassionate determines your strength as a leader. People don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the calmest presence. That calm is contagious. It gives others stability. It helps them breathe when they're anxious. It shows them how to act when they're afraid. True leadership through communication is less about charisma and more about consistency. It's not about performing, it's about being. It's about showing up the same way every time, honest, grounded, clear. That consistency builds trust. And trust is the currency of leadership. Without trust, words mean nothing. With trust, even silence becomes powerful. To master communication as a leader, you must learn to speak with both head and heart. The head gives logic, structure, clarity, direction. The heart gives emotion, warmth, connection, meaning. When both align, your message becomes unstoppable. People don't just agree with you. They believe in you. They don't just hear your plan. They feel your purpose. That's what makes leaders unforgettable. Their ability to merge truth with tenderness, Mastery also requires humility, because the moment you think you've mastered communication, you stop improving. Every conversation teaches something new. It's about yourself, about people, about the power of words. You'll fail sometimes. You'll say the wrong thing. You'll misread emotions. But if you learn from it, you grow deeper, and your communication becomes more human. Leadership through communication isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. People forgive mistakes faster than they forgive arrogance. They trust vulnerability more than performance. So don't hide your humanity behind authority. Show it. Let your team see that you care, that you listen, that you're learning too. That honesty builds connections stronger than any motivational speech ever could. Great communicators lead by example. They don't just talk about values, they live them. They embody what they expect from others. That embodiment creates influence that no training manual can teach. Because communication mastery is not about technique, it's about truth. When your communication comes from integrity, it inspires. When it comes from ego, it manipulates. And people can always tell the difference. Integrity gives your words credibility. Empathy gives them reach. Clarity gives them shape. Confidence gives them life. When these four qualities come together, your communication transcends skill. It becomes art. Art that moves people. Art that heals conflict. Art that unites purpose. That's what it means to communicate like a leader. A true leader listens before speaking. They observe before reacting. They understand before deciding. Their communication doesn't come from impulse. It comes from intention. Every word they say is anchored in purpose. Every pause they take carries respect. Every action they choose builds trust. And over time, those small moments create something larger than influence. They create legacy. Because communication mastery isn't measured by applause, it's measured by impact. It's not about how many people you impress. It's about how many people you uplift. It's not about the volume of your message. It's about the value of it. Leaders who master communication leave behind more than results. They leave behind relationships built on respect and understanding. When you reach that level, you no longer speak to be heard. You speak to serve. And that's the final stage of mastery, when your words stop being about you and start being about others. You use your voice to empower, your tone to encourage, your silence to listen, your presence to guide. That's when communication becomes leadership in motion. And leadership in motion doesn't just move people, it transforms them. Because the way you communicate becomes the way others learn to communicate too. Your calm becomes their calm. Your clarity becomes their clarity. Your respect becomes their standard. That's legacy. That's mastery. Leadership through communication is a mirror of who you are. If your words reflect kindness, people feel safe. If your tone reflects confidence, people feel guided. If your presence reflects peace, people feel grounded. So speak less to impress. Speak more to express what matters. Speak less to control. Speak more to connect. Because the world doesn't need louder leaders. It needs clearer ones, kinder ones, real ones. When you lead with mastery in communication, you don't just change the conversation. You change the culture. And that's the mark of true leadership. You don't need power to influence. You need presence. You don't need perfection to inspire. You need honesty. You don't need to command respect. You need to give it first. And when you do, you don't just lead with words. You lead with who you are. That's communication mastery. That's leadership.